My name is Annika Steg, and I am part of the fundraising team for the Alioto for Mayor campaign. Thank you to each member of the Ethics Commission for your service for the city and for taking the time to hear us today. We have spent months reaching out to supporters all over the city and receiving their generous contributions to our campaign. These donors believe in Angela, and they believed that their contributions would help the campaign qualify for public funding from the city and county of San Francisco. On March 27th, we confidently submitted over $53,000 in qualifying donations from San Francisco residents for consideration by the Ethics Commission, and then we waited. We knew there was a chance that some donations we had submitted could be flagged by Ethics for follow-up, and we were prepared to spend the allotted 5 days clarifying these donations. And so we waited. We waited for 9 days before we received the response from Ethics. On April 5th, we were shocked to see just how many donations Ethics had flagged or rejected for unreasonable explanations. Addresses of apartment buildings that were flagged because they are also zoned to allow business parcels. Common abbreviations for occupation and employer like VP and SFPD were flagged for more information. A donor's self-reported occupation and employer as teacher for SFUSD was flagged for more information. Many donors self-reported their occupation and employer as real estate and self-employed, and they were also flagged for more information. The San Francisco Ethics Commission took 9 days to review our submission and then only gave us roughly 30 hours to respond to literally hundreds of these unreasonable rejections. Mostly unreasonable rejections. Our committed team of staff and volunteers worked tirelessly for those 30 hours given. We reached out to hundreds of donors asking them for more information about their occupation and employer. Based on ethics requirements, we asked donors to send us proof of their San Francisco residency in the form of copies of their California IDs, utility bills, bank statements, rental agreements, voter registration records, recent pay stubs, or even voided checks. To be perfectly honest, this felt like a gross invasion of privacy. There were many donors who either did not respond or declined to share this information with us, and I don't blame them. At the end of the 30 hours granted to us, we resubmitted our qualifying donations and the hundreds of updates to the occupations, employers, street addresses, and proofs of residency of our generous donors, but it was simply not enough time to locate all the information requested by the ethics staff. That is why we ask that you grant the Alioto for Mayor campaign 4 more days. Please give us a fair shot to carry out the wishes of our donors and qualify for public funding from the city and county of San Francisco. Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, I
Commissioner
have
Cobb.
a question. This is public comment. There is on the agenda number 3, which is Ms. Alioto's appeal of an adverse determination of eligibility. And I raised the question of whether everyone realizes that you'll have an opportunity to comment on agenda item 3 rather than in a vacuum, so to speak, because the commission hasn't heard a report from the staff. And logically, and as a matter of custom and practice, the staff makes a report. And then there'll be argument and representations by Ms. Alioto. And then if there needs to be further expression or information from the staff, that'll be given. Then the chairwoman will ask for public comment. And you and everyone else will be able to comment, including Judge Chiantelli, who's a $1,000 an hour mediator, and Judge Bergeron, who hasn't hit that yet, who's a civil rights specialist. All right. Thank you, Madam. Would you just verify that for me
Yes.
for the audience?
So verified. So we'd ask that public comment regarding agenda item 3 be given during the public comment phase of agenda item 3 when that's called.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on agenda item 2? Oh.
Charlie Marsteller with Friends of Ethics. I did want to say that to the audience and to the body watching us on television that this is a semi or quasi-judicial body. So the adjudication of this type of matter has legal implications which are very important to us all and the people in the city. So that's why the procedures may seem a little formalistic or stuffy, but I'm sure you'll agree to the importance that that you get your right to speak and under the right agenda item following the normal process, and I appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. As I told to the new Commissioners, welcome to the Commission.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cobb and everyone, how are y'all doing today? My name is Ace, of course, you know, and when I read in the papers about this issue here, I was very concerned, not only for this issue, but for the rest of the candidates, and in particular, some of the candidates, in my opinion, needs to be brought to this Ethics Commission. I have just a statement, and I'll do it after everything is finished, is that now that you're shine lighting on Angela Alioto saying, I wonder if the rest of the candidates get the same treatment. But I do know one thing on my research, and I'm not favoritism, or people might say London breed is from, we're in the same color. I love London. I knew her from a young girl. My daughters used to play with her. But politics is full of tricks. Makes you turn to a lunatic. And if you don't watch out, you're going to get, oh, don't say that word. But the bottom line is here, when we finish with this case, because I'm here to stand toe-to-toe with Alioto, because I don't think it's fair, but that's okay. Out of all the corruption that's been going on in these elections, going back to 2011 with the Ed Lee and all of that, and all of that's coming out on my book that I'm putting together, City Politics here, there's certain selective things that goes on in the city. If you got the power of stamp of Willie Brown, and I'm not scared of Willie Brown, Judge Cobb, and right now, I used to be 20 years ago, but I'm 64 years old now. And I'm questioning what the hell is he doing? I mean, I read in the paper where he tried to change some kind of fountain, and he put it in his column, and yeah, and I changed it, come on down, because I changed it. What in the hell did he think? He don't put his foot in his mouth. He's starting to do that. He need to retire. He's getting old. Sometimes he looks so young, like he's taking some kind of interjection. I look at him sometimes, he look, well, let me stick to this. But the bottom line, this city hall that I call Silly Hall, I'm glad the Ethics Commission is here, that we could root out all this corruption. And I do think Angela Alioto is the best person at. For the 2 years I think she could clean it up. Because I don't think the pay-to-play and all them crooks would go against Angela Alioto, because she done so much. And she done sued the city many times, and she got the biggest lawsuits. And I don't think they have the pay-to-play, pay-to-stay, or the pay-to-lay, or pay to turn the other way. Anyway, I'm here to see what the procedures are and to stand toe-to-toe with Angela Alioto.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on candidates' appeal of executive director's adverse determination of eligibility for public financing for Angela Alioto for Mayor 2018.
Madam Chair, I have a motion as it relates to my participation in this particular issue, unfortunately. For purposes of the record, I am familiar with this issue. I'm familiar with the candidate, and the issue before this commission is whether or not the $50,000 threshold was raised, 500 individuals were identified, and it was done by a certain date. As it turns out, I supported this candidate for purposes of public financing, and I am in fact one of the contested items on page 123 of the list of supporters. There is an indication that I listed myself as self-employed, which I am and have been for years. However, I don't think it's judicious, if nothing else, for me to sit in judgment on an issue in which I'm perhaps a participant in. So I'm unfortunately, in my second hearing, going to have to request of the panel that I be recused from this issue and not rule on it since I'm involved.
I'll so move.
Thank you.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Should, through the chair to the city attorney, is it traditional for someone in my position to remain for public comment, or is it traditional for them to leave for purposes of appearances?
I think at this point it would be appropriate for you to leave the room.
Leave the room. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan.
See you on May 2nd.
So, Executive Director Pelham?
Thank you, Chair Chu. We've provided both to the committee's representatives and to the public, and of course to you all today, a memo for Agenda Item 3 that details the determination that under the program procedures, the Executive Director, I am required to make when candidates have sought to participate in the public financing system. I thought the easiest way to review some of the basic issues would be perhaps to review an illustration that is it's printed in color. There are copies on the public counter for members of the audience here today, and each of you commissioners has also been presented with a copy of that. It summarizes the same information that is in the memo about the deadlines that are relevant to the determination that I made in regard to the Alioto for Mayor 2018 committee. In essence, as you know, and for those who are listening, the question that is before the Commission is whether the Commission today should affirm the determination that I made regarding the ineligibility of the committee to receive public funds for the June 2018 election. The memo details an overview of the recommendation, the specific filings that we received from the committee, the applicable law that we understand applies to it, as well as some policy considerations regarding the original filing and the submission and the request for an appeal. I want to just briefly walk through the illustration for purposes of establishing some context and timeframes, and then I'll come back to our recommendation for you today. As shown on the chart that you have, it's entitled Public Financing Eligibility Deadlines for the June 5th, 2018 election. A very comprehensive program that the voters established back in 2002 to create public financing for candidates running for elective office in San Francisco. It is a program not unlike other jurisdictions where there are very specific requirements established in the law for candidates who wish to participate and therefore qualify to receive public funds to assist them in their campaigns. The program here in the city has some very specific deadlines for when candidates need to identify their interest in participating in the program, submitting a request to be certified as eligible, which is the issue before you today, and then once certified as eligible to submit claims to receive matching funds in limited amounts for contributions that are qualified as defined by the program. There are a number of deadlines that are established under the law for when those requirements need to occur. There are very specific eligibility requirements established in the law, our San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, Article 1, for what is considered a qualifying contribution, what may be matched, what may not be matched. The Commission's regulations also go into great detail about what must be provided in terms of supporting documentation for the staff to be able to review the request for qualifying funds when committees submit those to us. And we very much appreciate the complexity and the challenge that candidates who are busy running for office have when they are seeking public funds. It's a program that's designed to help increase a multiplicity of views and perspectives in city and election campaigns, and we believe it's a program that is worthwhile, and we want candidates to be able to participate. We also know that the trade-off that comes with that participation, because these are public funds, is the ability to demonstrate that they have met all the qualifications that are established under the law for the program. Just briefly walking through some of those boxes at the top of the page, as you'll see, once a candidate opens, starts running for campaign, by starting in 18 months before the date of the election, which in this case is June 5th, 2018, as early as December of 2016, candidates can start raising funds that may be considered qualifying contributions. The law also establishes that no earlier than 9 months before the election, even if candidates are fundraising before then, no earlier than 9 months before the election is the earliest date for them to submit a certification or a request to be certified as eligible. That's their qualifying request. In practice, that hasn't happened in this election cycle. It's a compressed election, as you know, due to the unfortunate and untimely passing of Mayor Lee. But there is a deadline for when, an initial date where candidates cannot submit qualifying requests before that date, and that's September 5, 2017. In January, when candidates submit their nominating papers to get on the ballot as candidates, there is also a deadline for public financing at that time where candidates detail their intent to either participate or not participate in the program. In this year's election, there were 6 mayoral candidates who indicated they wished to participate. There were 4 that ultimately submitted certifications for eligibility. In mid-January, there's an earliest date when candidates can receive public funds. That is not a date that had significance this year, but it is a specific threshold date established in the law. And then we look forward to getting into March. As you'll see, March 27th is a date that the law establishes as the 70th day before the election, and that has significance, and I'll come back to that in a moment as well. But that is the deadline to file a qualifying request. Candidates who do not file a qualifying request to be certified as eligible for public funds by that time cannot be determined to be eligible.
So, clarifying question, if I may, Ms. Pelham. All candidates for, in this case, the mayor, had from January 9th until March 27th then to raise funds and then submit their qualifying request.
Yes, and theoretically they could have submitted a qualifying request as early as September 5, 2017.
Right.
But they're not required to file their intent to participate publicly and tell the world they're planning to participate until the deadline is January 9 when nominating period closes.
Thank you.
So the 70th day before the election is March 27th. Again, candidates must file their requests by that date or they cannot be considered under the law to participate. There are also 2 additional deadlines established in the law, no later than the 60th day before the election, which is April 6th this year. That is a deadline for qualifying request resubmissions. It has been the case that every mayoral candidate, and I believe actually even the supervisorial candidates this year, perhaps due to the compressed election cycle, none were determined as eligible on the first submission. That was common for this year. But there is a deadline, that was April 6th. That if they have a resubmission that's going to be submitted, it has to happen by that date again, or they cannot qualify. And then finally, no later than the 55th day before the election, which would be April 11th, that's the deadline under the statute that the executive director must make all final qualifying decisions based on submissions for the cycle. Based on those deadlines, as detailed in the memo, we reviewed the claims, determined that the deadlines were not met by the Alioto for Mayor Committee, and based on that, made our recommendation to you that that the submission, that the denial for public financing should stand. So those are the specific deadlines that we had operating, and that's what were detailed in the memo to you. I do want to bring to your attention, so the question about whether the Commission should affirm the determination about whether they are able to receive public funds for the June 18 election, as based on the deadlines that the committee failed to submit their documents, that is a recommendation that we believe is a recommendation that's worthy of the Commission's affirmation. As we were preparing for this hearing today and triple checking our information, I do want to, however, bring to your attention one underlying issue that is not addressed in either really our staff report or in the documents provided by the committee on regarding this appeal. And it basically underscores an underlying issue of how we applied those standards. And it goes back to the 70th day. And for this reason, as I walk through this, I want to bring to your attention that I cannot in good faith move forward with a recommendation that you deny the appeal today. I'd like to come back to my modified recommendation. But as we were looking through this and verifying the information that we have, there is an inconsistency between our supplemental guides that we provide for candidates' benefit and what the law requires. And I have to say that we pride ourselves, or we try to pride ourselves, on following the law to the letter. And in this case, I will tell you that we did not do that. Our supplemental guide is incorrect with regard to the way it states the 70th day application for the mayor's race. And I'm going to take a moment to detail that because this is significant.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So if you, again, look at the chart with the deadline of March 27th, which is the date no later than the 70th day, qualified eligibility, in reviewing qualification eligibility, one of the criteria is that contributions must be received on or after December 5th and before the qualifying window closes. When you look to the statute, the qualifying window closes by the 70th day of the election, before the election. That is on March 27th. Our supplemental guide for the mayor's election states it as before the 70th day before the election, which would in effect make it March 26th. As a result of that reading, and as a result of that advice perhaps that I believe we gave the committee, there is a question in my mind about whether the committee in fact had contributions that they might have submitted had we indicated that March 27th was a deadline. And in an abundance of fairness, I think that we need to ask the committee if they had those contributions that they would have submitted had we not told them otherwise. And I would like to suggest that's a question that the commission raise and pose, and that if in fact the committee has contributions that it did not submit that were dated March 27th, I think we should look at those before a final determination is made.
So to recap, then, under the law, and I'd ask the Deputy City Attorney to confirm this interpretation, that contributions for purposes of qualifying requests can be counted if they were made up to and including March 27th.
That's correct. There is a slight discrepancy between the deadline for qualifying contributions for supervisorial candidates versus mayoral candidates. Mm-hmm. And the supplemental guide appears to have been relying on the deadline set for contributions for supervisorial candidates. Hence the slight discrepancy.
Okay. And so now the recommendation of the executive director is that these contributions, if any, that were made on the 27th of March, that the committee be given an opportunity to submit those and have those be counted towards their eligibility requirements.
Yes, when I reviewed again the claims that were the list of contributors that were submitted with the March 27th request and the April 6th request, again, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I did it rather quickly today, but I believe there were a handful, or perhaps at most two handfuls, of contributions that were dated March 27th or after March 26th and therefore rejected by us. I would like to confirm if there were contributions dated March 27th that were not submitted that might have had a bearing in any way on the committee's ability to reach the eligibility threshold of $50,000. The committee submitted on both of their initial claims contributions totaling over $100,000. On the first claim, we were able to determine that they were qualified for roughly I believe it was around $29,000, and the second claim on April the 6th, it was about $39,000. So they may or may not have contributions dated March 27th. They may or may not reach $50,000, but I think in an abundance of fairness and acknowledging if we made a mistake that might have kept them back, we need to own up to it, and we need to review that.
Thank you. And then with regard to the balance of the submission, then what is your recommendation?
I think we're quite comfortable, again, with the analysis that we did and the concerns that we had for the follow-up. We applied the same standards to the committee that we did with all other committees that have been running in both mayoral and supervisorial races. I can fully appreciate that when a question like this might be raised in this setting at this time, there may be some doubt cast on our credibility that we might have to be working hard to regain in the eyes of some, but the detailed lists that we provided the committee gave them very explicit information about what was missing in terms of supporting documentation, and we did not see that they were able to provide that in the time by the deadlines required. So again, I think from my perspective, certainly, the major and the only question is whether there is a question about March 27th contributions.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
Just have a clarifying question through the chair to the executive director. Does this interpretation apply to other candidates' committees, or this is it? It's 1 day difference.
Yes, it would apply to any of them. And we have the 3 other mayoral candidates who have qualified, are receiving public funds, and those were based on their their second or third claims, but they request to be qualified as eligible.
But it would not have changed the outcome for the other committees?
No, I don't believe it would have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinarily, I would have the campaign for Angela Alioto for mayor speak now, but we're down a commissioner for a moment, so I think we'll beg everyone's forbearance for a moment until he returns.
If I may just ask one more.
Yes, of course, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the confusion, is it because it was a special election that caused the staff to misinterpret?
I think that's something that we have to take a very critical and close look at internally. I would say that I know we have been scrambling often with the pace of commission meetings, with the fact that we're down staff in the front office, that we are still trying to fill the seats. I mean, ultimately, we and I did not review clearly the law enough in order to analyze this the way that I should have. So I think that there are a number of issues that perhaps collided at the same time. But I think the fuller answer to that will be once we've had a chance to take a deep dive internally. But it does underscore the need for us to continually to look to the law directly and to have the kind of rigorous discussions internally that we do, and we sometimes make mistakes.
Thank you. Okay. If there's anyone from the campaign for Angela Alioto for mayor who would like to present.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Sandra Rivera-Speed. I thank you for having us today and listening to the matter of Ms. Alioto's campaign's appeal on this issue. To give you a little background on myself, I'm a San Francisco native. My parents are also San Francisco natives. I grew up in the Sunset District where my parents still live. And I have been a lawyer for the past 13 years, 7 years of which have been at a law firm on West Portal here in San Francisco. By way of chronology, in terms of the relevant facts that have to do with our appeal here today, I'd just like to generally go over the written submission that we provided in the appeal, which is that Ms. Alioto's campaign submitted their qualifying request to the executive director on March 27th. which was timely. Her staff, between March 27th and April 4th, repeatedly called the Office of the Executive Director to inquire about the status of the determination of her qualifying request. On Tuesday, April 3rd, was the first time that contact was actually made with the Executive Director's office, in which someone spoke to Ms. Alioto's campaign. And when her campaign manager had inquired about the status of Ms. Alioto's application, he was told by a staff member that the office has 30 days to review, which gave the campaign the impression that Ms. Alioto's campaign or request had not. The executive director's office had not yet started the review process, which was of extreme concern because the campaign was aware that a determination needed to be made by the 55th day, which was April 11th, and it was now April 3rd.
Excuse me, Madam Chairwoman.
Commissioner Kopp.
Counsel, would you identify the name of the individual who you describe as assistant or deputy campaign manager?
Sure, it's Michael Mallon, and there is a declaration. His declaration is attached as Exhibit A to my appeal.
All right, thank you.
Sure. So on the morning of April 5th, Ms. Alioto spoke to Executive Director Pelham, and Ms. Pelham told Ms. Alioto that there were a couple of items in her application that needed additional supporting documentation. That was at 10 a.m. on the morning of April 5th. Later in the afternoon on April 5th at 2:25 p.m., Ms. Alioto again spoke with Ms. Pelham. At that time, Ms. Pelham said that there were 280 items that required supporting documentation. So it went from a couple of items in the morning to 280 items in the afternoon. Subsequently, at 5:08 p.m., Ms. Alioto received notification from Ms. Pelham that the determination letter denied her eligibility to receive public funds. In that letter, it indicated that Ms. Alioto only had 1 day till April 6th to resubmit supporting documentation to cure the defects of these 280 items. Now, this was the first time that Ms. Alioto had ever heard of the regulation, that there were only, that she had to, only had 1 day to resubmit. In fact, that information is contained nowhere in the documents that were provided to the candidates. For example, in the candidate's guide for city elective office, at page 21, section 8, San Francisco's public financing program provides partial public funding for candidates for mayor of or the Board of Supervisors to help defray the costs of elections. Candidates for mayor or the Board of Supervisors should consult the relevant supplemental guide to learn about requirements relating to public financing program. The supplemental guide, specifically prepared for mayoral candidates for the June 5th, 2018 election, at page 13. What happens if you are not certified? If your qualifying request or supporting documentation is incomplete or otherwise inadequate to establish eligibility, you will not be certified. The executive director will notify you, and within 5 business days of the notice date, you may resubmit the qualifying request and supporting documentation. This is the document that is given to the mayoral candidates, which Ms. Pelham had referred to there had been some discrepancy about the March 27th, whether March 27th contributions count, and there was essentially the equivalent of a typo. Well, in this entire document, there is no indication that resubmissions are prohibited after the 60th day. It is simply not in this document, nor is it in the code, which is the law. And that is the San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. Nowhere in this code, which my understanding is that was passed by the Board of Supervisors, is there any indication that resubmissions would not be accepted after the 60th day? What it does say is that the executive director has until the 55th day, which in this case was April 11th, to make her determination. And that also is reflected in the supplement. But again, nothing regarding the 60th day, nothing regarding any limitation on a candidate's ability to resubmit.
Madam
Commissioner
Chairwoman and the
Kopp.
council too, do you intend to adduce that as an exhibit for purposes of an administrative record? Or do you believe you need not do so?
Commissioner Kopp, it is attached as a exhibit. I believe it's exhibit H. Thank you, sir. It's
We
exhibit-
have attachments.
Yes, to my submission.
You're referring to an attachment.
Yes, it's exhibit
H.
H to my appeal, or to,
All right, I've got it.
okay.
Deputy City Attorney Shen, I have a question for you regarding Ethics Commission Regulation 1.142-6. It establishes that no resubmissions for certification may be made later than the 60th day before the election. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that the statute may be silent, but the commission regs are spell out the 60th day deadline for resubmissions.
Yes, the regulations do that, and the policy rationale may be that given that the executive director has to make her final determination by the 55th day, it ensures that any resubmissions are provided in a time that still gives the staff time to actually examine and review the resubmission.
Thank you.
So the issue here is really boils down to fairness. It is pursuant to the San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. It is the purpose of the code to ensure that all individuals and interest groups in our city have a fair opportunity to participate in elective and governmental processes, and that's at section 1.100B2. Here, there was no notification whatsoever that Ms. Alioto would not be provided the 5 days that is accorded in the supplement and in the code itself. There was no indication that if she filed timely, but toward the end of the filing period, that she would be prohibited from using the full 5 days to prepare her resubmission. In fact, if you look at the language of Government Code 1.142F, it states, resubmission. If the executive director declines to certify that a candidate is eligible to receive public financing under this chapter, the executive director shall notify the candidate. Notwithstanding section 1.142B of this chapter, the candidate may, within 5 business days of the date of notification, resubmit the declaration and supporting material. If the candidate does not timely resubmit, the executive director's determination is final. Notwithstanding, that's the key word there, meaning in spite of the 70th day requirement, meaning everyone gets the 5 days, regardless if you submit on the 70th day or if you submit prior to that. You still get those 5 business days in order to resubmit. So imagine Ms. Alioto's shock and that of her campaign on April 5th when she got her determination letter indicating that she had 1 day. 1 day. Now, she had $27,432 of qualifying contributions that she had submitted on March 27th. So she had 1 day to essentially get $23,000 more dollars of qualifying contributions. Now, we don't know if that's the actual number because now it appears that the March 27th contributions can count, which will obviously change things. But she had 1 day. In that 1 day, Ms. Alioto's campaign was able to get almost $12,000 additional dollars in qualifying contributions. Basically, she was able to resubmit information that provided that information to qualify an additional $12,000. Now, imagine if she had had the full time that was allowed for every other candidate. I mean, we're talking, it's not just about $50,000 here, it's potentially $1.4 million in matching public financing from the city, which is a lot on an election. And in fairness, which is the whole purpose of my understanding of the Ethics Commission and the policies of the Ethics Commission as reflected in the code and the regulations. It's the spirit of it that to even out the playing field, to make it so that everyone has a fair shot to obtain this public financing, and to be allotted 1 day when there's absolutely no indication. Nowhere does it say, if you submit by the 70th day, watch out, you might not get 5 days to resubmit. It doesn't say that anywhere. You know, I don't think the purpose of these regulations is to trick the candidate. I think that the purpose, as it says, is to help the candidate. And if you're helping the candidate, transparency is key. And also my understanding is that the regulations were not passed by the Board of Supervisors. They're not, while they may be policy or instructive, they're not law. But more importantly, they were not given to the candidates or directly, the candidates were not directly pointed in that direction, because if you look at this specific supplement for candidates for mayor seeking public funding, which the executive director referred to herself as, being something, a guide for the mayoral candidates, and changing her recommendation based on a misstatement that was contained in here. Let's not talk about the misstatements. How about the omissions? How about the omission of a key regulation, policy, whatever you want to call it, that if you wait until the last day to submit your application, you're not going to get time to resubmit? That's a big deal. Everyone else, as Ms. Pelham said, every person who applied for public financing in this campaign has had to resubmit. But Ms. Alioto just gets 1 day and everyone else gets 5. She understands that she might not have had further opportunities to resubmit, but there doesn't seem to be any ambiguity or discretion in that 5 days that's offered to mayoral candidates seeking public financing to submit their resubmissions of supporting documentation. So with that, the campaign would ask that the commission vacate the executive director's determination that Ms. Alioto is ineligible for public financing and denial of certification. 2, allow Ms. Alioto 4 additional business days as was and is authorized under SF Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code Section 1.142F to resubmit additional documentation in support of her qualifying request for public financing. We would also add to that the inclusion of any March 27th, 2018 contributions that she received. And 3, authorize the executive director with the ability to accept Ms. Alioto's resubmission and review this resubmission in order to make a determination as to Ms. Alioto's eligibility for public financing and certification. Finally, I would just like to state that in spite of the fact that the executive director did not consider this information in the final determination of contributing campaign funds in the amount of $39,000 and some change, Ms. Alioto's campaign continued to work and actually did resubmit on April 10th. They did another resubmission in the hopes that the executive director would follow the law on the 5-day resubmission process. And that, pursuant to the executive director's letter of April 11th, 2018, making your final determination, those supporting materials in that resubmission, in that second resubmission, were not considered. So I would just like to point that out, and I thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Ms. Rivera, I have a clarifying question. So with regard to that second submission that you said was not considered, are you asking us to direct the executive director to consider that submission?
To consider it, but Ms. Alioto would need the 5 business days. So that's still not the 5 business days from April 5th to, I believe it's only 3 business days because 2 of those are weekend days. But, you know, I think she should be entitled to the full 5 days, which she had 1 day, so 4 business days. So that would entitle her to 1 more business day, if that April 10th submission was considered.
See, so it's, well, today is April 20th, and it's been, the campaign received notice on April 5th, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so there was 1 business day on April 6th, so you're asking for 4 additional business days?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Kopp.
I have a couple of. Let's take an easy one. You refer to a government code. You're referring to the campaign and government code, not the California government,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Correct.
All right. If 5 days had been accorded, would that have been April 11th?
Yes.
And how many approximately donations were not counted with respect to your argument about March 27th?
That I don't know, because that was an argument, that was a new issue that was raised just today. So that was not something I've looked at. And I believe that,
Well, is there anybody in the campaign who can provide that?
sure.
I know that there were donations that we received on March 27th. I don't know exactly how many. We did not submit those in our filings because it was, our understanding was that only donations through March 26th would be
Well,
accepted.
do you have a written record of those?
A written record of the donations that came
Yes.
on March 27th?
Yeah.
Yes, not in front of me, but yes, we have records of all of our donations received by the campaign.
Well, do you have someone who can get it over here? All right, I'll subside. It's your case.
Well, Mr. Kopp, just as a point of clarification, this issue on the March 27th donations was just told to us by the executive director as we got here. This was not in their responding.
I understand that.
Okay,
You have the burden. She doesn't.
okay. Anything else?
Yes, one question. I understand that the Ethics Commission offered training, in-person training on the public finance. I'm curious as to know whether candidate Alioto or anyone from her campaign attended.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, was there? Okay. Any further questions from the commissioners? Open for public comment.
Hi, I'm Alfred Cantelli. I'm a native San Franciscan, and I know about you. I've done my research. I'll just let you know a little bit about myself. A native San Franciscan. I live up in Russian Hill. I've been practicing law for 50 years. I was the first elected presiding judge of the Superior Court of San Francisco. For 1 year, I served as a pro tem appellate court judge. Before that, I was assistant district attorney under 3 different district attorneys for 11 and a half years, and before that, in private practice. 17 years now, I'm working for ADR Services as a mediator, and Mr. Comp is wrong. I don't charge $1,000 an hour. In fact, some of my stuff is pro bono as well. I am a contributor and a supporter of Angela Alioto, another native San Franciscan. The reason why I'm here is because I know that this commission has very tender and sensitive powers, equitable powers, we say in the law. And you hear fairness. In fairness, there's a theory of law called estoppel. And estoppel is when you have a rule of law and you have an authorized agent, as we have here, and I really appreciate the executive director having the courage to sit here and tell you that her office made a mistake, that it should have been March 26th as opposed to March 27th. And I commend you for indicating that there were mistakes. But that's not the only mistake, and that's what estoppel is based on. Estoppel is based on the theory of equity, where authorized agents like the executive director makes representations to people who, with reason, rely on those statements, and then there's prejudice because in relying it, because of mistakes, they are prejudiced, like Angela Alioto, who's prejudiced, who loses public funding of over $1 million. But there isn't just one mistake, March 27th to March 26th, right? There's the mistake that we hear of Amy Lee, who was the auditor on April 3rd, who spoke to Mr. Mallon and said, we have 30 days to review. Now, it's maybe one word against another, but it's still a fact. What do you mean on April 3rd that this agency has 30 days to review? That's not true. You don't have 30 days, but they relied on it. Next, April 5th. You know, how can you trust when people say something they don't mean or really don't mean what they say? Lee Allen Pelham, from what I understand, said there's only a couple of items to be done. Boy, that's a mistake. How can you say there's only a couple of items to be done when later on that afternoon you find out there's 280 items to be done? Wow, that's a misrepresentation by an authorized agent. And then what happens is that not only was there 280 days items to be fixed, but it could be done in 5 days. Later on, there's an email in the afternoon indicating you only have 1 day, April 6th, from an authorized agent. And,
Madam Chair, I would move, what do you need, a minute?
Pardon me? Yes, I can, 30 seconds.
30?
You said you offered me a minute.
Mark this day in history. I'd move 30 seconds.
Okay.
30
seconds. So what I'm asking for is to vacate this on the grounds of estoppel and equity. It's the only fair thing to do. And add, if you can add 5, add 4 additional days. And here's the thing that really is the spur under the saddle. The Alioto people were told they only had 1 day to get things fixed. And today, This very day, we're told for the first time, go get your financial records from March 26th, today. That's a second big mistake. I mean, people should be more well-informed, and people should be certainly informed on the authorized governmental agency in making representations. We talk about fairness, we talk about estoppel, reasonable reliance. There's no question. It screams for equity here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm just going to take a second to express what we did in that 30 hours. Generous people gave me a donation to be the next mayor of San Francisco. We had these entries. We submitted $53,000 plus. We had this 280 entries where we had to call everybody back and get their proof of residency in one day. We had until, as Ms. Pelham told me, and I think that in fairness, she was really stressed out too. I mean, this campaign has a lot of people in it, and a lot of things were on the June ballot. So having said that, I want you to understand, we had to call people and tell them that it wasn't sufficient to say self-employed, like Commissioner Ryan. That wasn't enough. We had to say something else, what they did. Maitre d' wasn't considered a job. Contractor wasn't considered a job. The street of Magnolia doesn't exist. It's down in the marina. The street of 7th Street doesn't exist. It's right down here. There were complaints about the entries of these 280 that some of them we absolutely cannot fix. And I really want to point out that calling people back and doing what we had to do, I probably lost more votes than the money could ever get me because people were so angry at me for having all of our staff, there were 10 of us, that were calling people and asking them to prove they live in a place where some of them were born. And I want to point out about the women, and I want to work on this process. I would love to work on this process because there's something really wrong when the people who public funding is supposed to be for, i.e. the people that can't get the money to run for an election, can't even be part of this process. It's so difficult. So we have to do something to make it a little easier. I want to point out the P.O. boxes. I can't tell you how many women told me that they had a P.O. box because they've been assaulted and they don't want anyone to know where they live. And so they wouldn't tell us where they live. So all of a sudden, in other words, they wouldn't give us the proof of residency that we needed. And I didn't blame them at all. I said, I'm so sorry. I don't want your proof of residency. Okay, so that took us down, I don't know how many thousands. And then the cash. The cash donations, none of them were acceptable. It wasn't a lot. It was 600, 700. My brother, Lawrence Alioto, has been born and raised in San Francisco. He signed the envelope. He dated the envelope. He gave the cash. He's not accepted. We can't even explain some of these reasons why. But it's not the ones we can't explain the reasons why. It's the one where I called so many people who felt harassed and who I said, oh my gosh, that's okay, we won't count it, because I was not going to make them give us their PG&E bill or give us their place of residence. And then I called Ms. Pelham yesterday, and I said, I didn't get to talk to her, and I appreciate how busy everybody is, but what you all just put out today for today's hearing has all of my donors' addresses on it, publicly. So I just want to stress, we have to take the donor into consideration here, and we can't be harassing donors in trying to get this job done. I can't thank you all enough for allowing this hearing. I really, really appreciate it. Believe me, we're doing the best we can. And again, I think we'll be submitting, we submitted 53,000. Maybe, Mark Lino submitted 70,000 plus, and I know London Bree said that she had a hard time, and Kim and Jane Kim said she resubmitted 3 times because the qualifications are so difficult in this proof of residency. I would love for this commission to take a look at that, because we really can't be harassing people that have been generous enough to give us the money. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Wait a moment,
Commissioner Kopp?
I have a question, and then I've got a comment. Why did Lawrence's donation, was it less than $100?
$99, which is included in the amount.
Yeah.
I know, I don't know.
So why wasn't that identified as a qualifying donation?
Commissioner, I don't know.
Okay, I will ask the staff in due
Okay.
course.
Oh, there are several we don't understand. In other words, we can't fix them.
Yeah.
You know, we can't fix them. Now, the Angela Alioto checks, we have the donors writing personal letters saying the intent of the donor is the campaign. It was in a campaign envelope. You know, I mean, things like that and the cash didn't add up to a lot. But when you put it all together, it brought us down to $39,000. It brought us down to $11,000. And, you know, disqualified us. So then when Ms. Pelham told me we have 1 day left, I have to tell you, I could, and for me not to be able to talk, that's a big deal.
Right.
I couldn't even talk.
All right, here, I'll give you a chance to talk a little more. Do you have a approximation of what you took in March 27th?
53,000.
Sorry, on the single day, I do now.
Well, what?
Yeah, how much?
It was $370 because we had really,
$370.
we've been prioritizing it for the 26th. So on the actual 27th, we only took in $370.
We weren't raising money for the 27th because we were prioritizing the last day. So it was 370. But I have to tell you, in this instance, 370 could make a difference.
All right, thanks.
So thank you all so very much. I really appreciate it, and I really
Well,
would
the
love.
statement is you don't have to thank us. You're entitled to an appeal.
I realize that, but I still
All
thank you. Because I know this is a special hearing, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Again, for the record, I'm Charlie Marsteller, and I'm actually one of the proponents of public financing back in 2000. In fact, I helped to write the CFRO in 1995. It was a common cause suggestion to the board, and Mr. Hallinan picked it up, and we went ultimately to the ballot. And then when Judge Wilkin shut down our ingenious mechanism, we had to rewrite for public financing, which is not a bad system. But we're learning from this because, as you can think back, we haven't had a lot of experience with a really truly open mayoral election. So I'm very appreciative to see the kinks that have kicked out in our auditing process and our qualifications of various contributors' attempts to do good faith. And I think it really does point to the fact that we need to rethink this whole system. There's a model in Seattle, which is interesting, on vouchers, where everyone in the city gets a voucher, essentially, and can make a contribution to the candidate of their choice one time. So that would simplify the process of qualifying the audit. But I do want to say this, that it certainly wasn't the intent of this body or the legislative intent of the authors of the public financing system to make the system user unfriendly. To the contrary, it was to make the system exceedingly friendly, because the purpose is to provide a platform for debate to the greatest extent possible. It's not to level the playing field. That's unconstitutional. But it's to provide for a platform for debate. And we get a good debate with our public financing system, or we should. And as I think we will see in June, that we're going to feel pretty good with as many candidates as possible qualified fully for public financing. So thank you for being here today, and I'm looking forward to your testimony.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Mark Labarle, and I am here to speak for the integrity of this very important ethics committee. If this committee does not recognize Ms. Alioto's right to qualify to receive funds, this committee will be stained by a grave abuse of its mandate to pass on these electoral issues. As an attorney, I receive various communications from this city with names identified as SFFD and CCSF and the like. Yet I understand that these shorthands were rejected as part of her application. Clearly, Ms. Alioto did not breach any ethical rules. Yet this committee stands to misinterpret the facts and circumstances, and its discretion as an independent ethical arbitrator is at stake. The record and equities, as Judge Cantelli pointed out, and policy considerations, as Ms. Pelham pointed out, are clear and are important. The committee must now allow Ms. Alioto to correct and qualify her application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Commissioners, my name is Ali Khalidbari. I want to, first of all, before I share my story, thank you for your service to San Francisco. I am a resident here, and I too also live in Russian Hill. I love this city, and this was a city that my husband and I chose to live in as he barely escaped the Iranian Revolution, the Ayatollah back in Iran. So in this city, my husband and I, we operate and own a business called Focaccia Market and Bakery. We have locations throughout the city. We're also proud owners of SF Florist, a premier florist in the heart of Financial District. But even more important than that, we are proud to have raised our only child, our daughter Sophia, who is 18 and was also born in the heart of this city. So needless to say, we are not only proud San Franciscans, but we love this city. We chose to support Angela Alioto because she loves this city as much as we do. But that is not the reason I'm here today. A short while ago, and this is the first time I have ever participated in a political campaign. If you can only imagine being a Persian, being involved in politics is not very pretty. So we tend to put our heads down and pray for the best. But when we met Angela, we knew we had to support her. So I made a small contribution, and I did what was required. I filled out the donor sheet, and I wrote a check. A few days later, I was told by the campaign that my contribution was rejected. Now, that wasn't what was so heartbreaking, but I didn't let that bother me. I wanted to remedy the situation. So what could I do to prove that I'm a resident? We decided I would take a photocopy of my California driver's license. So we did, and I emailed it. Now, I have to share with you, as you can tell with my glasses, I'm a bit impaired visually. But I made a point to read my California's driver's license and identify the numbers on the photo before I sent it off. Well, a few days later, specifically on April 6th, I was identified that the ethics staff rejected my driver's license because they said it was blurry. Now, this is a city that I love, and it's every Persian girl's dream to live in a city such as this, all right? And I'm the Persian girl, standing here in front of you. But what really is heartbreaking to me is to be denied that I'm a resident from the very city that I've put sweat and blood over. So all I am asking on behalf of myself and my family is to be allowed to participate in a democratic process where I can support my candidate for mayor, which is clearly Angela Alioto. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners. Thank you. My name's Pia Hinkle. I'm a third-generation San Franciscan. I have known candidate Alioto for more than 20 years. I've worked with her off and on closely for 10 years, and I'm supporting her for mayor, and I'm a contributor. I don't need to tell you that public financing of our elections is crucial to level the playing field and reduce the influence of big money in our city. But the candidates who accept the limitations of public financing need to feel confident that the rules are going to be equitably applied to all candidates, and that the Ethics Commission has duly considered for each election cycle, especially shorter special election cycles, which we seem to continue to have more of, and adjust deadlines accordingly so that there is reasonable time and no confusion for filings to be reviewed and for candidates to all have the same opportunity to respond to any needs for correction of donation data. I urge you to please grant the Alioto campaign the remaining 4 days allotted to all the other candidates to correct their data. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Julie. I was born in San Francisco. I've been a resident since '94, registered to vote since 2000.
Why don't you raise the microphone?
I too contributed to the Alioto for Mayor campaign in hopes that my donation would count towards the campaign financing effort. I was called because my donation had a P.O. box. I've had a P.O. box for 17 years. I'm one of the people that Angela talks about when you say was harassed and mugged, and that's why I have a P.O. box. So I was really upset to learn that my address has been shared for this hearing. But anyway, my utility bill was not sufficient enough, so I came down to the Department of Elections and spent 45 minutes to get this to submit to the campaign. They said it had to have the official city seal in order to count. I'm still not sure if it'll count unless she gets the 4 days. So I'm just here to urge you to make this a fair process for all of us that want to support Angela for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Even Commissioners, I'm going to really take my time to be quite clear with all these procedures. First of all, I'll just tell you a little history that I have with Angela back when she was with the Board of Supervisors as the president. But I could rewind the tape on what her family and her father done for the African Americans here in this city and county, in this city by the bay. Right now, our population is down to like 3%. And even if all blacks voted and all their cousins, their rats and dogs, it still wouldn't be enough for just one block. So let me go past here. I'm here supporting Angela and trying to find out what is this issue about. Let me just say to you about everybody make mistakes. And I'm not going to blame y'all, but if I was a lawyer, I would have Exhibit A, B, and C on just the day of this hearing. One paper says at 1:30, one paper says at 2 o'clock, and one paper say at 3:30. And we all fallible. We make mistakes. Now, let me just go on because I only got... The bottom line is, and I'm not up here trying to just favoritism Alioto, but I'm up here because it's from my heart. I'm up here to say I haven't contributed because my budget is below poverty right now. But I would support her. I worked in her last campaign as her security, and I would take a bullet for her back then because she was for my people. And if I worked in her campaign right now, I feel the same way. So I'm asking this commission because, you know, we're all fallible. And I'm not going to go back to the 2011 campaign. I know most of all them gangsters and all those crooks. And may Ed Lee, may he rest in peace. But I'm still here talking about the Fillmore Street. The Alioto's done more for our black community and other minorities than any mayor put together. Ain't no mystery. All you got to do is read the history. And even my black community will probably say, who, Alioto? Well, they don't even know the history, so I can't blame them. I can't get out there and fuss and fight with them. But I can come up here and speak and have a voice for those who are not speaking. You see, I read about this article in the newspaper. She didn't tell me to come down here. I don't think she knew I was going to even come down here. And I'm just one individual, but my name is Ace, and I've been on the case. And I'm going to be on the case. And I'm looking forward for y'all to be fair, square, and show an example that this city by the Bay does care, and they're fair for everyone. In closing, in 20 seconds, I would say that our community in the city needs new leadership in the city by the Bay. And to try to disqualify her from getting funds, I think would be a disservice. And if I had anything to do with it, I would suggest that y'all consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Esteemed Commissioners, thank you for hearing me. My name is Michael Ferrantino. I am a real estate broker, and I live here in San Francisco. I moved here about, I think it's a year and 2 weeks ago. And I got a call from the campaign because I'm a supporter and also a volunteer that one of the contributors was rejected. And that person is my partner, who's lived here for 13 years. He is a consultant, he's a writer, a speaker, and he, doesn't have a corporation that he's paid through. Even as a real estate broker, I have a corporation that I set up that I'm paid through. So I was able to put my corporation down. So it sounds to me, after hearing this, that people who are consultants are essentially difficult to deal with for some reason. They're hard to verify, and their driver, even though my partner submitted his driver's license, he has a driver's license that is at a P.O. box. And then, of course, to verify the address, I think we sent in an electric bill. So that seemed to have done it, I think. But he's lived here longer than I have. I've only been here for a little over a year, and he's been here for 12 or 13 years, adding to the city paying taxes. So it seems like the issue here, one of the issues, is that consultants need to be, looked at or qualified in some other way rather than just disqualified because they're hard to verify. I will say that one of my other contributors, my friend Carolyn, just moved here in January. She took a job at Facebook. She works in San Francisco because they have an office here. She was immediately qualified. It wasn't a problem. So if you work for a big corporation, you get qualified pretty easily. But her driver's license hadn't been changed from LA to San Francisco yet, so which she has now done since then. Anyway, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Speaking to the mic. Thank you for hearing our concerns today. My name is Nelda Jones, and I was at the campaign office volunteering on Thursday, April the 5th, when we received news that we had to do some work ahead of us that needed immediate attention. We were given a list of donors' information that needed to be verified within less than 30 hours. We had to quickly pull apart the list and divide it among our team members. We were instructed to get additional information for our donors to verify their San Francisco residency, as well as additional employment information, such as job title and employer. From that same list, we had to then start calling donors. Way after business hours and bedtime hours, which was 9:30, 10:30, 11:30 p.m., to verify if they were San Francisco residents. It was stressful and it was a daunting task. A couple of examples of ethics pushback on donor information was realtor needed to be verified. Well, there was no verification necessary. The person was either a broker or an agent. Another pushback was officer SFPD. You cannot get any clearer than that. They're police officers employed by San Francisco Police Department. I called one lady, identified myself, and I verified her name. She then said to me, "Do you know what time it is?" And then hung up. I don't blame her. I would have done the same thing too. The task was overwhelming for a small campaign relying on volunteers and a 30-hour deadline. I would ask that you would please consider our claim for an extended 4 days to complete the necessary verification. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your service and all you do for our beautiful city here. My name is Jackie Miller, and I'm the founder and CEO of Partnerships for Change. We're a United Nations NGO headquartered in the Presidio, and I'm so proud to be here and live here in San Francisco. I've lived in the Marina since 1990, and I am a wonderful supporter of Angela Alioto, and we've been working with Angela. We've known her since 2007, when she began something called the Knights of St. Francis, and through our humanitarian work in developing countries of Partnerships for Change, we totally saw Angela's vision to help the poor and the underprivileged in San Francisco and around the world, and she's a wonderful speaker and representative for St. Francis and the namesake of our beautiful city. Thanks to Angela, I've been, and her efforts through the Knights of St. Francis, I've been able to see Pope Francis 3 times, and actually was invited to speak and present at the Vatican in January. Her efforts really go far and wide, not only in this city, but globally, and she is a champion for so many of the poor and disenfranchised. I'm here today because had we known that we had March the 27th, I would have spent the entire day calling people for money and asking their support, because I'm really feel privileged to be on her finance committee. That makes a big difference, but I just really want to commend you, Ms. Pelham, for sitting here today and sharing an issue with your office. I think that's really very commendable, and whatever we can do to help you and the city of San Francisco get better, we all have room to grow, and no one's perfect. And we'd really like to be able to course correct and move on and make sure that Angela is given a fair chance to really have a fair fight in this election, because we need her and we need to really turn San Francisco around. So I thank you so much for your time and everything that you all do to help the city. And I know you don't have easy jobs, my goodness, but I just want to commend you all for doing the best you can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your service in hearing our claim today. My name is Peter Uckman, and I am a supporter and volunteer for the Angela Alioto campaign. I was able to meet Angela as a student when I was studying for my Master's in Public Administration degree. For the past 2 years, I've been interning for a law firm, doing interviews for individuals who are claiming discrimination and employment law infringement. And I'm here today to speak about the events that are affecting our campaign. On April Thursday 5th, we were informed that we were being pushed back on 200 donations. And for the next 24 hours, between April 5th and April 6th, we were to verify information for our donors. And I wanted to mention that the value of ensuring that donations are given fair and honestly is immense and needed to preserve our democracy. However, denying a campaign contribution due to someone not spelling out SFPD or SFUSD made our task more onerous. Because in the small amount of time, being able to reach out over 200 people was an intense task. I believe that if we are granted the remaining 4 days, that our campaign will be able to meet the 50,000 goal and be able to receive public financing. I wanted to thank you, esteemed commissioners, for hearing our claim today. And again, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Honorable Commissioners, my name is Susan Horsfall. Please accept my gratitude for your time and service here today. You have a tough job. I was a commissioner for 8 years on a different commission in the city, and I know it is challenging. Choosing a candidate to support for the office of mayor is a thoughtful and serious choice. The Ethics Commission staff is tasked with reviewing these donors for public finance, reviewing their information to confirm that indeed they are San Francisco residents, and those efforts are important. Equally important is the voters' ability to use their First Amendment right, as confirmed by our highest court, to voice their support for with their hard-earned dollars for the candidate of their choice. That's a deliberate decision, and undermining that support is an egregious step. You've heard from folks here today who made their very best effort to verify their local residency when it was demanded and were still rejected for reasons that seemed to defy their earnest efforts. I had a list I was going to read, but I'll just skip to two. First of all, your fellow commissioner, Kevin Ryan, who wrote self-employed and was rejected because the term self-employed was not sufficient. There was a retired nun who gave $20 and filled out her donor form perfectly, but lives in a church facility, and that was deemed rejected. The ethics staff uses as a tool the property tax records here, and that's a valuable tool. It's good that you have it. However, the property tax records are not a sword of Damocles to be used to disenfranchise supporters of their right to voice their support for the candidate of their choice. And that's how it was used. Your thoughtful remedy to this unfortunate action by your staff will be a welcome action. Your wisdom and experience in this matter are both appreciated and valued. Again, thank you for your time and service.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? No. Okay. Fellow commissioners, thoughts?
Pardon me?
Any thoughts or
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. Where's Mr. Mallon? He leave? And why didn't that carpetbagger from San Mateo County testify? There he is. There he is. Yeah. All right. Get up here. And don't throw any spitball at me.
I did not throw it. Two things, actually. When I was asked to come up and I heard that Judge Kopp was on the commission, I thought, this is a no-brainer. He's incredibly fair. And in the law, when there's confusion created by an entity or in writing a contract, like you get 5 days and then you're told you only get 1, that confusion is resolved in the favor of the person who was prejudiced. And that's all I want to say. They were entitled to 5 days. They only got 1. It's in writing that it's 5 days, and I expect that that's what you will do. And I'm working as hard as I can to be as successful as arbitrator Chiantelli. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kopp.
All right, let me just see. All right, no, I have no questions. I'm satisfied.
Commissioner Lee?
I have a question, and then maybe we can talk about, maybe we can hear the executive directors.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
But I think the executive director said that later on she was going to propose some kind of a amended action. But anyway, my first question is it unusual to have such a high number of questionable reporting based on addresses and employment status compared to previous campaigns, not just this campaign, but previous campaigns?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Lee. I will ask Amy Lee, who's familiar with this, to give her observations. Unfortunately, my computer just died, so I can't access the actual data.
It's not unusual. Okay. And
Anything else?
well, I am ready to make a motion.
Well, I'm going to,
If we-
Madam
Yeah.
Chairwoman, well, you may have questions.
No, I do not have any further questions.
Nobody in testifying mentioned the fact that the executive officer under the law has discretion to waive any mistake or imperfection which was made. Mr. Shen, does this commission have discretion?
I'm not sure what you're referring to in terms of the discretion of the executive director, but the commission certainly has wide discretion considering
All right,
appeals, design the
then-
remedy it feels is appropriate.
Then my motion is based upon, one, our discretion, and number two, upon the facts. The facts show mistakes that were made. I don't know whether this is a equitable proceeding because it's an administrative law proceeding, but my friend Ace Washington put it succinctly in common language. Everyone makes a mistake because we are all human. I think Mr. Marsteller testified that the intent of this law, which he knows more about than anybody in the room, was to qualify as many candidates as possible for public financing. In case anyone watching in this hearing room or on television doesn't understand, public financing is based upon money from taxpayers. And there is a philosophical debate about whether tax money should be used for candidates. I won't use the word politicians. And it's in that sense that these regulations and the times for action were prepared by the Ethics Commission staff. And I'm glad they were prepared by the Ethics Commission staff. Otherwise, somebody has the impression that you walk up to the paymaster's window over at 25 Van Ness Avenue at the Ethics Commission, you hand in a form, and you'll get a check for $50,000 or ongoing checks for $10,000 each, whatever the system is. I am persuaded that whether you call it exercise of an equitable power of an administrative body, or whether you call it estoppel, or whether you call it detrimental reliance, that this commission should vacate the executive director's determination that the appellant or applicant is ineligible for public financing as recommended on page 5 of the appellant's brief. And secondly, that Angela Alioto be allowed 4 business days starting on Monday, April 23, 2018, ending on Thursday, 5 p.m., April 27, 2018, to resubmit additional information In other words, I guess the word proof can be applied in support of her application for public financing. And I am moved, for those who are interested, not about all the campaign advocacy I hear, and as a footnote, Mrs. Alioto, you may get as many votes out of today's hearing as it is alleged you lost, understandably, by bugging people for some kind of documentary proof, especially with these stories about the driver's licenses. So I look to Mr. Marsteller for great ideas on how you prevent identity theft in this day and age with the need for documentation. In any event, my motion is to vacate the decision of the executive officer and allow the applicant for public financing candidate for mayor to qualify by April 27, 2018.
Commissioner Lee?
Do we need a second before I make motion? I'll second it for the purpose of continuing the discussion.
Okay, there's a second. And Commissioner Lee?
I also like to make a motion based on the executive director's admission earlier today on the misinformation between the supplemental guide and the other rules. I propose that the
Commissioner Lee, could you speak into the microphone? You're hard to hear. Thank you.
That I would suggest that the committee be allowed one extra business day, starting Monday, to submit additional information, not only on the March 27th information, but any other information that the committee can, any additional information the committee can provide to this, to the staff. So it's a little bit different from Commissioner Kopp's motion. Mine is strictly based on the difference between the supplemental guide, the executive director's admission that an error was made. And I appreciate the staff for recognizing that. And because of that, I do believe that the committee should be afforded the one additional business day to submit that and any other additional information the committee can gather before that.
So, Commissioner Lee, as I understand your motion, it would be to you're moving to permit the campaign to have one additional business day until 5 p.m. on Monday, the 23rd, to submit not the contributions from March 27th and any corrections they wish to make to their prior submissions. Is that the content of your motion? Okay. DCA Shen?
Well, isn't that the sense of the motion I made?
Well, yeah, sorry to interrupt.
That you're going to verify the donations as coming from residents already. You're going to count whatever the $350 on March 27th.
Well, if I may, I think the difference is based.
What, to open it up to get more donations to count? That isn't what the appellant requests.
No, but we didn't know that there was a day. We didn't know about March 27th, so we didn't raise money on March 27th.
Oh, well, that'll count. That's in my motion.
Yes, but Commissioner Lee's motion is to provide one additional business day, not four.
And also the rationale is not based on the discretion of the commission, but based on the early admission from the staff level. So it's a little bit different.
I don't
So-
understand what the difference is.
Could I
So,
try to clarify? Unless
yes, City Attorney Shen, can you please clarify the different, Commissioner Lee's motion?
Right. So at this point, it may be helpful to just clarify where we are. So there's a motion from Commissioner Kopp to provide the Alioto campaign with 4 additional business days starting Monday, April 23rd, ending Thursday, April 27th, to submit any additional information in support of their public financing application and allow for the any contributions received on March 27th to also be considered qualifying contributions.
That's correct, and your recitation reminds me that there should be a time within which the staff completes that work. Isn't there some through, Ms. Pelham, isn't there some problem with certifying so many days before June 5th? Huh?
In response to that question, I believe we're already past that statutorily.
All right, well, what do you recommend as the day to certify?
For your motion, you're proposing that the information be provided, am I correct? Did I hear this next?
April 27th, 5
April
p.m.
27th, a week from today.
4 business days would be Thursday, April 26th.
5 p.m. on Thursday, April 26th. I think the staff would need 5 days from then.
What did I say, 27th? It's the 26th.
5 business days
Yeah.
from then to review it.
Huh?
5 days or 5 business days?
5 days, April 26th, 4 business days is
Yes, I
what
understand.
was requested.
Yes, no, that is your request, and if the question is how many days, then would the staff
Yes,
request?
and you've just said 5.
And I have just said 5 business days from that date.
All right.
We have a
so-
number of claims in process.
So that means
requirements for that.
April, or May 1st?
May 3rd.
May 3rd, all right.
That would be May 3rd, would be additional 5
Okay.
business days.
And does that still enable a campaign to get the money to spend in a month? Okay. All right, that's my motion with that additional certification period.
So thank you for the correction about the date. So Commissioner Kopp's motion has received a second from Commissioner Lee, I believe.
Yes.
Is that correct?
And if I could just clarify, the reason why I proposed 1 business day starting Monday was that it would allow a little bit longer period of time for between the staff's review, and if it's certified that they qualify for public financing, then there will be a bigger window. Because I remember the staff has mentioned about the tight, very, very tight timeline that we're already in. That's the reason why I proposed a 1 business day.
What are the dates?
So Commissioner Lee, in your motion, you would propose that the resubmission from the campaign, including the contributions from March 27th, be submitted by end of business on Monday, on
Tuesday, because it starts on Monday.
I see. So Tuesday, April 24th. So that would be 2 business days. One business day would be the.
Okay, by the morning of Tuesday.
Okay.
Right, close of business Monday.
By close of business.
Wait, what's
on
going to
Monday.
be submitted on the morning of the 24th? The information and the March 27th donation?
The same thing that you're moving to allow them to submit. It would be contributions made on the 27th of March, as well as the documentation that would be needed in order to correct any deficiencies that were previously identified, so that they could meet their $50,000 and 500 contributor requirements. So,
I don't know why the commission doesn't just follow the prayer on page 5 of the appellant's brief.
So I think the difference between your motion and Commissioner Lee's motion is 4 business days versus 1 business day. And from my own view, I think that the public financing program is really critical to broaden the platform for debate here in San Francisco, and it's very much needed. And I think that the purpose of taking such care in verifying the contributions of donors is because we are dealing with taxpayer money, and we don't want to do that lightly, and we want to make sure that the program has integrity. And so I think that there's a lot of learnings for everyone here, and I would look forward to working with staff on how to make this program work more effectively. And I will note that as part of the filings that the candidates have to make, that candidates sign up to comply with all of the regulations as well as the statute under the Campaign Finance and Reform Ordinance regarding the pursuit of public financing, including the filing deadlines. And ordinarily, I think that this would be, I think that it would be covered in the training and be laid out in materials, which are, I think, in this instance, have not been as clear as they needed to have been with regard to those deadlines. And that if it's the will of my colleagues to allow for additional time to make those corrections, then I would be in support of that. I would note, however, that in terms of the timing, that the deadline of March 27th was from January 9th until March 27th was the same amount of time that all candidates had to submit their intent to file and to make their submissions. And as I understand from Director Pelham, that all 4 of the 6 candidates filed and had to submit because it is a time-consuming process in order to go through this verification of all of the contributors. And filing on the last day of eligibility was timely, but doesn't allow as much time as now becoming apparent is needed to verify all of those contributors. And that by moving the deadline out, I would just note to my fellow commissioners, to April 26th, would be 15 business days from the date of initial notification on April 5. Moving the deadline out to April 3rd would be 12 business days. So it would be an increase of either 10 or 7 business days from what would be otherwise statutorily provided to candidates. And so, in terms of fairness to all candidates, that there would have been in more than 5 business days that had elapsed from the time of notification to the time of resubmission. But be that as it may, we have 2 motions before us. So we'll take, Deputy Attorney Shun, is there an order that you would propose that suggests that we take this? Your motion was not seconded. Well, out of
I'd like the executive director's comments on the efficacy of my motion and the time for you to certify. Is 5 days sufficient?
If the commission is providing additional time for the committee, then I would request that also motion reflect 5 business days for the staff to review that information and provide notice to the committee as a final determination of the commission by 5 p.m. on the last 5th business day. So I leave it to the commission to determine where it is comfortable establishing a deadline date for the submission of that information. But I would request 5 business days from that submission date for us to review it and notify the commission.
That's what
notify the committee. And that the determination
and that's why
will be final.
Huh?
And that the executive director's determination will be final. not appealable to the
All
commission
right,
again. And that's,
I include that. It's not final on Superior Court, but it's final for City Hall and its vast environs. So you want, all right, the 5 days, the 5 business days. That's acceptable as a recommendation for the motion. But I see no reason not to accept the appellant's recommendation as to what the commission should do. And it isn't simply passing out money from tax dollars, but it's protecting a process. And maybe the process can be expedited and streamlined and the rest, but it's a complicated world these days.
Commissioner Lee.
Through the chair, can the executive director give me a clear timeline, the 2 scenarios? Number 1, if the committee was given 5 extra days, 4 extra days to submit.
For providing information, not for collecting more donations.
No, for providing additional information, and staff be given the 5 days to review.
Certified.
Compared to the 1 business day for the additional information submittal, no additional funding, and the additional 5 days for staff review. So what kind of a calendar are we looking at based on those 2 scenarios? So what is the final date of your final decision?
if I might just clarify, the date that you were proposing for submission of the additional information is that they would submit it on Tuesday, May 24th, excuse me, Tuesday, April 24th by 5 p.m. They would submit it on that Tuesday.
Morning, because one business day is Monday.
Then by
Tuesday morning.
I think if it were 5 p.m. on Monday, April 23rd, 5 business days then for us to have as maximum time to notify the committee of the final determination would be 5 p.m. on April the 30th, Monday, April the 30th. That's a...
Okay. And then the 4 business day scenario will be?
4 business days. 4 business days would mean they would provide it by, the committee would submit additional information by Thursday, the 26th of April, 5 p.m., close of business. And then the determination would be provided no later than Thursday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. to the committee. So as I see it, that's a difference of 4 days.
That's my motion.
So what I hear is that there is a desire on both my fellow commissioners to grant additional time. One motion is for 1 business day, and a second motion is for 4 business days. Is there, and out of a courtesy to Commissioner Lee, I will second her motion, but is there a way that we can reach agreement? I would like to know, is there a way for us to split the difference as between 1 and 4?
I don't want to split the difference. I want to adopt the recommendation.
So this commission acts by 3/5 vote, and that in order for the decision of the executive director to be overturned today would require unanimous vote today.
Madam Chair, can you clarify that?
I'll confirm with the deputy city attorney, but I understand that our commission requires a 3/5 vote to take action. And since we are 3 commissioners here today hearing this matter, that we would have to be unanimous in order to overturn the decision of the executive director.
Yes, to be clear, the commission acts by majority vote in almost all circumstances. There are 5 members of the commission. even though we have 2 members absent today, we still need those 3 votes for the commission to make a decision and grant Ms. Alioto's appeal.
So we have a difference of opinion as to 1 day versus 4 days.
Madam Chair, I echo what you said earlier about the importance of respecting the public financing, the integrity of public financing, because we are dealing with taxpayers' money. And I think that the executive director's report had outlined quite clearly before today, before the issue of the supplemental guide, had really outlined pretty clearly that it is the responsibility of the campaign and the committees to follow the laws and the rules. And the reason why I made the motion of 1 extra day was 1 extra business day was in recognition of the staff's admission that there was a 1 day difference, or however you want to call it, whether it's an oversight or a mistake. It was only based on that I recommend an additional day, business day, be given to the committee to submit additional information. I do not want to open up precedent to challenge future recommendations from the staff who have been doing the due diligence based on whatever information they had. And it is true, yes, they had until a certain time to submit, but based on the really unusual nature of a special election this year, maybe the other campaign submitted more names, more campaign donors. Maybe that's why they did not have the extra burden to resubmit 200 additional research. I don't know. But normally, the responsibility is on the campaign and the candidates to work with the commission staff, to attend the presentation that the staff had presented. But, an error was made. So my motion was only to address that mistake, but not to open it up for future campaigns that they would come in and just say, we needed additional time. And I just don't want to open up that can of worms. And I do agree that we should continue to work with the staff and the community to tighten up the information. But I just think that 5 additional days is, I just don't see right now I am not open to agreeing to a 5-day period.
May I be recognized?
Yes, Commissioner Kopp.
Number 1, it's not 5 days, it's 4 days. And number 2, every campaign has a responsibility to satisfy the law to qualify for public financing. And every administrative agency has the responsibility and duty to provide at all times accurate information. Not erroneous information, not conflicting information. And this law, in this instance, guarantees a non-rigid result based upon dates. It gives discretion, which any court of law in California will honor and respect in the event of litigation. And that means in this instance another 4 days within which to obtain information that is more difficult than I ever imagined before today's hearing, from people like the young lady who doesn't like the idea of her address being on a public record when she's trying to perform her responsibilities as a voter, a voting citizen who supports a candidate. It's, to me, a bookkeeping matter to get that information, then the 5 days, and that will be the final determination administratively by the executive director. I can't make the case any better than that, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay. So we'll take the motions in order then. So we'll take the motions. I don't think there's any more discussion to be had. I think we can.
Well, my motion is pending.
Yes, it is. So Commissioner Kopp's motion, which is to, 1, vacate the decision of the executive director regarding the eligibility of the Angela Alioto for campaign for mayor, campaign to permit additional 4 business days for the submission of correcting materials for their qualification to be considered eligible for public finance, to also be able to include contributions made on March 27th in that determination, and to direct the executive director to consider this resubmission, and to provide an additional 5 business days from and after the receipt of that submission for the executive director to make its final, make her final determination, and that such determination would be final and not appealable to the commission. Does that capture your motion? Okay. Deputy City Attorney Shen?
Just to clarify 2 minor points of the motion is that I believe that the committee's additional submission due Thursday, April 26th would be due at 5 p.m. and the staff's final determination on that additional submission would be also due at 5 p.m. on May 3rd.
Yes. Okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
2 in favor, 1 opposed.
I will make a motion to make April 25th, 5 p.m., the deadline to submit qualifying information by the appellant. And in all other respects, the provisions of the failed motion will be included.
So I will take Commissioner Lee's pending motion, which was to provide 1 additional business day to April 23rd. But to Commissioner Lee, was this to also to vacate the decision and to consider as per Commissioner Kopp's motion, but just a 1 business day timeline?
Has that been seconded?
I did second it, yes. Commissioner Lee?
Through the chair, can I ask the committee a question? Because we're talking about a business day, but in actuality, we are talking about 3 additional days.
Yes, go ahead with your question.
So if I may ask the committee, my motion is to grant 1 business day, which means by 5 p.m. Monday, April 23rd. So between now and Monday 23rd, there would be 2-3 full days for the committee to gather the information. Would that be sufficient?
We're talking about 100. The original was 280, and then it was lowered with our second submission. We're talking about dozens and dozens of phone calls, and people do not answer their phone for political calls on the weekend. I mean, you get hung up on. The next 2 days are not going to help us at all. We have a lot of entries to do to resubmit properly. I think we could do it, though, by the 25th, if it gave us 3 days instead of 4, which is a compromise. I think we could do that. I certainly know, I will be working at it every minute of the day, and which is it's been difficult, and we have a great team who will be working at it. But I think we could probably do it by the 25th at 5 o'clock, if that was acceptable to the commission.
If I may ask one more question through the chair.
Please.
If it were April 24th, end of business day, which is Tuesday, that would allow the staff 5 business days, which would make it the end of, 5 p.m. May 1st, for the staff director to issue a final decision, right? Would that be a correct timeline? So that would allow about a month. I'm just thinking of the time needed, between the staff's final decision and
the funding.
If you're qualified for the funding, then there will be 1 month for the committee to spend.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think the funding's immediate.
I'm just asking, would the 24th work for the committee? Because that would allow the staff by May 1st to issue the final decision.
Let me find out how many entries we're talking about, Commissioner, if you will.
Based on staff memo, I believe it was 153 from the April 6th submission.
So that's 153 people we have to find and get proof of residence. And it's Friday afternoon. Now, some of those say self-employed, and we put a slash and put same, pursuant to what the director has guided us in doing. That was the only mistake on that entry, was self-employed, like Commissioner Ryan's. All we have to do is put a slash and then put the word S-A-M-E, same. So there are a couple of those. So out of the 153, there are probably about 140, 135 that we need to remedy. And remedy means getting their license, getting a PG&E bill with a recent. We got a lot of PG&E bills that didn't work because they were PG&E bills from 2017. So it has to be a recent PG&E bill. And so it's pretty difficult, this proof of residence. I mean, like, as you see, Julie went down and it's like getting a birth certificate. She had to go get a formal document to prove where she lived, because she's been trying to not tell the public where she lives because she's been mugged. So, I mean, it's pretty hard to do 140 without having the weekend to be able to do it in 2 days. I'd like to compromise, though, because we just need more time, We were told so many things that wasn't right, and then it was corrected within hours. But those hours we had spent calling people, we had to call several people back who had given us proof of evidence a second time to say, at first it was all right, and then it wasn't all right.
So what I hear, the bid and the ask amongst commissioners, is Tuesday, April 24th by 5 p.m. or Wednesday, April 25th by 5 p.m. Can we split the difference and make it Wednesday, April 25th at noon?
Let's go for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Kopp?
Aye.
So just to be formal about it, that it would be taking your motion to,
all right, it's your amendment.
So by Wednesday, April 25th at noon.
Somewhere around this world, noon is close of business day, the 25th. How's that?
All in favor of granting the petitioner's request and incorporating the contributions from March 27th, directing the commission staff to make the final determination within 5 business days, and making that not final binding and non-appealable. And am I missing anything else, Deputy City Attorney Shen?
Right. Also, just in terms of the staff determination, which would be made on May 2nd, that
Yes.
determination would also be made by noon.
Yes, by noon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have additional
Be
public comment?
adjourned.
There's additional public.
There's additional
Fire-
public comment. Calling agenda item number 4, public comment. Is there any public comment? None. Okay. Move to adjourn then. We're adjourned.